As we approach the one-year anniversary of the horrific October 7th attacks on Israel by Hamas, we want to remind the world of exactly what happened on that day. It wasn't a military operation. It was a gruesome massacre of innocents. Be warned that the events described here are graphic and difficult to hear about. It's important, though, that we not forget and that we stand with Israel in their struggle against the brutal terrorist organization, Hamas.
What's your position within the Israeli defenses?
Right now I'm serving in a Special Forces unit that is a reserve unit, and we get called up during wartime. So we've been operating ever since, actually, since the day of the attack on October 7th against the Jewish communities in the South.
So where were you on October 7th?
October 7th, I'm at home, sleeping after a late night, last day of the festival of Sukkot, or Tabernacles. And my wife jars me awake, and she says, something's wrong, I don't know what it is. And I grab my phone, and I take a look at the unit text that we have, and I see like hundreds of texts. I'm like, oh gosh, here we go.
She was pregnant. They opened up her stomach, took out the baby, and stabbed the little tiny baby.
A lot of these terrorists are dressed as civilians. What does it look like to encounter that? And do you have a story of encountering a terrorist in civilian clothes?
Unfortunately, I have engaged and encountered with hundreds of these terrorists. Part of our mission was actually to escort the convoy of the terrorists out of the Strip and to get them to the field prison where they're going to be interrogated for information and so on, right? So we spent the night watching over these guys, and I'll never forget the story that we heard from one of the field interrogators who spoke to us after they handed him over to us and pointed out and said, that guy right there, by the way, just so you know, here's what he did. What they pointed out was that when they captured him and were interrogating him in the field to find out if he's a normal civilian or a terrorist, because like I said, a lot of these guys are in civilian clothing and you can't always know. And so just to make sure they got a terrorist, right? You know, we interrogate them. And so they found a lock of hair in his pocket.
A lock of hair?
Of a young girl. They found a lock of hair of a young girl. And they asked him, what is this? And he wouldn't tell. Of course, he clammed up. After a process of interrogating, finally he spilled the beans. He says, that's a memento of a young Jewish girl that he had raped, that they had captured. And he kept it to remember the moment. So we realized that one of these men that we were watching over that night was a pure demon from hell. Who rapes a young girl? I mean, I know who does. It's psychopaths, okay? Serial killers. People who are mentally disturbed in the worst ways. This is not a normal human being. And to keep a memento of it, that's the kind of stuff that when I've looked into, documentaries of these serial killers, like you hear of them keeping mementos of people they murdered, raped, whatever. Those are the kind of people that do that kind of stuff. I've never met somebody in real life, at least not knowingly, that was on that level of sick, demonic. Yeah. And I realized we were looking face to face with a pure demon. And here's the thing. He wasn't big. He wasn't strong. He wasn't scary. He was a skinny little, scrawny loser. Right? He wasn't a warrior. A loser.
Yeah.
The only person who could overpower is a young girl. You get what I'm saying? This is not a man who's going to face me on the battlefield. It's not a warrior. He's not worthy of even fighting.
How has Israel changed since October the 7th?
First of all, one of the biggest changes in Israeli society is that basically all of Israel is in mourning.
These are not regular enemies. These are not regular situations. I saw little kids who are beheaded. We didn't know which head belongs to which kid. I was crying for 5 days straight. I couldn't get out. I couldn't stop crying. Seeing little children, some of them had grandparents who were Holocaust survivors, and they were murdered in a Holocaust in Israel in 2023. Little babies, little children, you couldn't even recognize if they were kids. We couldn't even recognize. We saw a little baby in an oven. They put them in, these bastards put these babies in an oven and put on the oven. We found the kid a few hours later. We found women who were raped, young girls who were raped and then murdered. Anyone who was around these people were murdered or kidnapped.
All of Israel is hurting. Up until now, it's been one family member, one individual who got a terrorist attack against them or what have you, pinpointed, and then, the family that happens to be close to them and whatever. But because such a high number of Israelis were murdered on October 7th and then held captive in Gaza, it affected most of the country. I know someone who was at the Nova, a few people that were at the Nova. I know a ton of friends of mine who know people from the Nova. You know what I mean? It's like everybody knows people from some background that were involved and affected by these terrorist attacks. And the different communities in the Gaza Strip, Jewish communities just outside the Gaza Strip, and so on. Everybody knows someone.
One of the reasons that we're here at this time is to try to bring an understanding to the world about a post-October 7th Israel. What is it that you'd want us to know? What is it that you'd want viewers of this film to know? What should the Western world know about Israel?
I think it's important for people to know that Israelis are hurting. We're hurting really bad. And the hurt is even worse because we see how the world's treating us. Can you imagine being a rape victim and then having the court try you and critique you of why you did bad? It was your fault. You're the reason you got raped. It was your fault. That's what we feel like. Because that's literally what happened.
Those against.
The United Nations on Tuesday voted to back a resolution that demanded an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza.
In the name of humanity, I ask you all once again, stop this violence now.
After dire warnings by UN officials about a growing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, more than 3/4 of the 193-member UN General Assembly backed the resolution.
Our women got raped. They got mutilated. Our men killed in some of the worst ways. Our hostages held hostage, and then we're being critiqued and accused of war crimes and doing wrong. Little children. I'll give you an example. One of the little children, this is what one of my good friends engaged. They killed these terrorists in one of the communities, and then they got the body cam off the terrorists. And as they're flipping through the body cam footage, they saw the terrorists documenting how he had tied up a family, a husband and a wife. They're torturing the wife so that the husband can feel the pain and the torture because he's tied to her. Yeah? Cutting off her breast. And just before they decided to end it on both of them, they took the baby and they put the baby in the oven and they burnt the baby alive in front of the parents to watch the baby screaming to death in their own oven. Like, this is the kind of pain that's been inflicted on us. Young girls and boys being just shot dead. I know of one young girl that went viral on the internet from Sderot. Her dad carried her out of the car that gotten ambushed by one of those pickup trucks with terrorists on it. He went running away from the terrorist. The terrorist gunned him down and let the daughter run away by herself on purpose so that she can live with that pain for the rest of her life. This is the kind of hurt and pain. So we have orphans, we have widows, we have, the whole 9 yards. Mothers, husbands, wives. Everyone has been hurt. And we're in that pain, we're in that trauma still, yet at the same time to put wound to the pain, right? To add
Salt to the
insult
wound.
to injury.
Yeah.
The world has the audacity to critique us right now. I'm sorry, you're not in the position to critique me. You're not. Because no one in the world has ever had this kind of thing happen to them, except for maybe some countries in Africa, which you don't care about. I don't hear you talking about what's happening in the Congo. Some of the greatest massacres in human history. Millions of people murdered. Actual genocides taking place as we're talking right now. How come the world's not talking about this? There's real genocides happening in the world. But you want to critique us because we're fighting for our families? Fighting for our children? You know what? I have no words for people like that. If you have that kind of evil in your heart, there's something seriously wrong with you. And you need to ask yourself, would you be in sitting on that high horse that you're sitting on if this were happening to you? Put yourself in my shoes for a second and then tell me, how would you respond to this evil? Because it's evil. It's pure evil. I'll give you an example. Look at the film, again, because people don't have context, but look at the film American Sniper. There's a scene in American Sniper where it depicts this evil perfectly. You have, I forget his name, but he's one of the main bad guys that they're trying to, I think it's the Butcher of Baghdad or whatever, trying to get. He's a horrible, horrible terrorist. And one of his MOs was taking a drill and drilling through people's bodies, okay? And then killing them by drilling them through the head, right? So he would torture them with this. And in the scene, it shows a scene of him doing this to one of his victims, which is a young boy. This depicts the kind of evil we're up against. What do you expect us to do? What would you do? And I know the answer because I know what you do. You send your Navy SEALs. You send your Green Berets. You send your Rangers. You send your Marines. You send all of your fighting forces to eliminate this kind of threat. And it's the right thing to do, in my opinion. There is no better, righter thing to do than to kill those who try to kill others and to wreak horror and terror on other people. There's no other. What do you expect? What do you expect us to do? It's insane that people would even consider that what we're doing is the wrong thing. It's insane. It's insanity. You're insane if you think that.